you doing?
I'm doing really well. What about you?
Well, very good. I also made a short introduction, so we'll wait for a little bit longer. There are some people viewing, so that's good. I also already introduced the start of this session of the Study in Barcelona week, and I shortly already mentioned your name, but I didn't properly introduce you yet. So maybe we can start with that. So my name is Doreen from Barcelona Expert Life. Rodin, the
Yes.
word is yours.
Doreen, thank you so much for having me. My name is Rodin Affourtit. I'm Dutch, like yourself, and many people also in the network. I understood. I moved to Barcelona like approximately 7 years ago for my MBA actually. And during that moving, I was just super excited about just the city and also the quality of education. However, unfortunately, when I completed my MBA, I spent almost 24,000 euros. And by the end of the MBA, even though I'm Dutch, I found out that it was not accredited. Yes.
Okay.
And I found out that many students, and it doesn't matter where they come from because I'm from Holland, so technically I could have gone to the university or did a little bit more digging. But the problem is with private education is that, yeah, they show always beautiful websites and accreditations, but you don't really know if that is really applicable for your country. And that is one of the main reasons actually nowadays where people, of course, the main reason is budget, why they don't study abroad. But the second reason is if I send my child abroad or overseas, will he come back with something useful? Of course, a lot of experiences, but in the end, you want also that your child ends up with an education that they can apply somewhere. So, with that said, it's a long introduction. I found out that the system, so to study abroad, is a little bit corrupt in that sense, where normally there are all kinds of agents in between. So, if you are in America, it's a bit less, but mainly from countries like India, Pakistan, or South America, and so on. What happens there is you have local educational providers who work with a handful of universities, and they send the students to universities not which is best for the student, but where they can make most commission. And when I found that out, I realized, okay, first of all, there's a big business opportunity because you can make quite a lot of money there. But the main importance is to create transparency. And then we realized that the whole international education market is only focused on a really small segment, and that is the private education. And therefore, a lot of students, firstly, don't miss out on an international education because to study private, you need to have around from 10 to 20,000.
Okay.
However, mainly the best universities in Europe are public ones, and no one is helping them. And therefore, I started my company to create, also with the power of AI, a system that, based on the background of the students and their ambitions, and of course their budget and their means in that way, what is really their opportunity or which programs they can really study and then as completely unbiased because the part is done out completely automatically, and that is what we did in the last years. We are now with a team of 15, almost 20 people here in Barcelona, in Malta, and also a few people in South America. And our biggest target group are also your biggest audience is Americans who are currently stuck, because in America is something beautiful, or not beautiful, but the market is changing there, and we are helping a lot of parents with ambitious children who are getting stuck. And that is where we focus on right now, and also other parents who are. But we want to help as many people get clarity on what is possible and how it's possible.
Wow. Wow. Great introduction. And it sounds like what you're doing is very helpful for students and their parents if they really want the best path for their child or for themselves when it's about studying, right? Okay. Thank you for that great introduction. So today we are having a Q&A. We prepared some questions, but please, everyone in the chat, feel free to also share questions when it is about this subject, how to choose the right university or business school in Barcelona or in Spain in this case, because of course you're also focusing on more than Barcelona. Or any other questions that you could feel that Rodin could answer from his expertise from StudiesIn. So to start with, the first question for today is if you could briefly explain the difference between different courses. So like the bachelor, the master's, and the MBA. That's like maybe the beginning of all, right?
Yes, yes. So it is similar as in America or actually anywhere in Europe. So it's a standardized system, as you all know it. It's just the bachelors are you go to a bachelor program after you complete your high school. When you complete your bachelor's, you are eligible to do a master's and an MBA. In this regard, you can do when you obtained also a little bit of working experience. How at MBA, you can also enter sometimes quicker. It depends on which university you go. But I think, Doreen, since we focus mainly on Spain, I think it's important to understand the difference between the different study types. But I think we should focus mainly on the difference between education systems.
Yeah.
Because that is for a lot of parents not really clear. So Spain itself, I didn't know that either, but it's in the top four of one of the best education systems in Europe. That has to do with, of course, their social system. As you know, maybe if you live here already, they have great healthcare, and schools are also not left out. However, to get into certain schools, let's say the University of Barcelona is ranked in the top 20 universities in Europe. And but to get in there, you need to jump to quite some bureaucratic hoops, and that makes Spain Spain in that regards, and also that makes us having a proper business because Spain is beautiful, but in a way also it's quite bureaucratic, right, Doreen? I guess you live already a time in Spain, you know that, right?
Yeah, it takes a while to organize things here.
Exactly. From NIE to also eventually get your grades accredited. But if you look at the two different systems, okay, let's first look at the public side. The public side is if you want to enter from high school, doesn't matter where you're from, you need to calculate your grade or like your verification score. That means like if you, for example, come from America, you need to have at least three A levels. Three A levels, then you can enter certain university programs. But the problem is that since the studies are completely subsidized or completely, you can study for 800 euros in a public university. So that is almost subsidized. It's important that, of course, the local students will first be seated and then the international students will come later. The problem is there that you are competing with local students, and the only way most of the time how to compete with popular programs. So there are a few programs like psychology or some random programs which are not that popular. You can still enter directly with a normal, with, for example, your A levels without doing any foundation year. However, if you want to compete with the local students, you need to score extra points because the local students always have, let's say, 7 points more than any international student. How to do that, how to bridge that, is that you can do a foundation course. And a
Okay.
foundation course, there the bureaucracy comes to play a little bit. Even if you want to study as a so you want to do your bachelor's, if you want to study in English, most of the time, if you go for a popular course and just to compete with the local students, you still need to learn Spanish to B2.
Okay. To get into the course that you would like to get in. And is this only for public, or are we speaking about public universities at this
No,
point?
no, this is purely for public. I would like to incentivize though that you need to learn it till B2, so you don't need to be fluent, and it is mainly to do an entry test. This test is, let's say, if you want to do mechanical engineering, it's the basics of the jargon, the language they will use. I think it's Dutch, right? Jargon.
That's Dutch, yeah.
Yeah, they will use so the vocabulary they will use in this in this.
In this course, yeah.
However, what is important to know, this is only for bachelors. So if you complete that, so you invest that foundation year, let's say that will be 6, 7 months, then a student can study 4 years, let's say a 4-year bachelor for 800 euros per year.
Okay. And this foundation year, because you mentioned it's a bit bureaucracy. So how do people get into like a foundation year? How does that work? Or
No,
if
so
it's not
the
going to
fund
be quick, but
at the foundation year depends on which kind of program they want to get into. So that is also where we help with. Is what we do is we do a full eligibility study based on their background, and then we recommend, for example, okay, we have a really high, let's say your top choice would be to go to business in the University of Barcelona. However, there are limited seats available. So to get into that, you need to have a really good score on the selectividad. And the selectividad is uh, the exam, the state exam, which you need to do to compete with the local students.
okay.
And the selectividad exam, eventually that is where the foundation program helps with. And the foundation program, we can help with that. So that is depending on their Spanish. Students are able to get to different foundation schools. And then we, in the end, when they did the preparation course, we will apply for them with 96% accuracy. But this is only for bachelors. The
Okay.
cool thing is, if you want to get into a public master's, this is all not necessary. So you
Okay.
don't need to learn the language. So that is important. You don't need to learn the language, but you still need to do great legalization. Meaning, if you have an American degree, we need to legalize it with the Ministry of Education, and then see how the grade. Let's say in America you have a point system 1 to 4 GPA. How that translates to the 1 to 10 system in Spain. So that's relatively straightforward. And also we need to check if all subjects are recognized. Sometimes subjects are not fully recognized, no problem. Then people can do, let's say, 1 or 2 subjects remotely, and then they still are able to go into the university of choice. But as you see already, it's almost a science to get into it. So a lot of students, they
Yeah.
apply and then see if it sticks, but then it doesn't. And the problem with international education is that uh, the systems or the processes can take up a long time. So to apply for a public university can take up to 6 months, especially when you still need your visa. But like, therefore, we are also helping with our technologies that everything can go parallel. So if one is completed, or you start with 3 applications at the same time, if, for example, your top choice is a little bit, yeah, if the chances are not the highest, then at least you don't miss out on your study abroad dream, because a lot of students, especially with time management and procrastination, sometimes that goes south.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, for example, if a student would get in for February 2026, which is in a few months, would there still be enough time, or would it already be very tight? Or what would
Good,
be the fastest routes to get there?
yeah, good question. If you want to study in February, then the only way to study will be private, because
Okay.
public main intake will be in September next year. But the difference between public and private is so first of all, the subsidization. So the costs are way lower, but also the public universities most of the time have higher accreditations, but that doesn't mean for every school. So in Spain, there are many, many private schools who also have full accreditations, but that is something we will verify for you. So based
Yeah.
also where the student will go to. So if a student wants to study in February, bit strange time, but it's possible. Then we can only go for private. Private has 4 intakes most of the time, depending on the school. Let's say they have 2 main intakes, and some
Mhm.
business schools have 4.
Okay. So that would only be possible in private. And if students want to start in September next year, there would be still also options for public. What would you recommend
Yeah.
in the steps to take? Because
So what we always recommend is so we help now almost, I think, 8,000 students, and we didn't place all students at universities. That would have been great, but I'm saying we helped almost 8,000 students with do the orientation process, and the orientation process is only 99 euros. What it does is you upload all your documents, and you get matched with a specialist in your particular field. So, for example, if you want to study medicine, to get into the top ranked medicine faculty, you need to know the process, but also sometimes people. who can push you forward. So what we are doing most of the time is just do that orientation. That is one day, and based on that, you know exactly if you can study, what you can study, and how you study it. Because a lot of people, especially when you're not yet in Barcelona or in Spain, they're just dwelling on the fact, can I study abroad? First of all, most people think, no, I don't have enough money. Now, I can bet that if you speak with one of us, you find out that actually almost anyone can study abroad. But at the same time, what people also think is that they will get stuck in the process, or sometimes they think they can study abroad and they procrastinate for a long time, and then in the end, uh, if you look at the grades, it's not possible. So if you have no is also an conclusive answer, and you can focus on other stuff in your life again.
Yeah, and then at least you know for sure instead of that you didn't try.
Exactly. So that is what I always recommend, just to start with the orientation, and based on that, students apply by themselves or not. And also the important thing is that we work with all public universities and only fully accredited private ones. Meaning, if you do your research yourself, or with ChatGPT, is fine, or with mainly Google, then you only see the tip of the iceberg. And mainly the schools who are good in Google or advertisements who come up top, even with the popular search engines. If you go, for example, to study portals, and you see there certain universities, most of the time they are all sponsored,
Okay.
and they don't show any public ones. Why not? What I told you in the beginning about the in-between companies don't know how to monetize public universities, and that's actually, yeah, that is the problem with the market.
So it would really be a good choice to actually plan a call with you guys because then they are sure that it will work out fine. Actually, you mentioned that it was 99 euros, but we do have a discount code for this, which is I think interesting for everyone that's watching, which is expat20 off. We'll share it as well in the chat. So well, take advantage of that. There came a question in the chat from Miriam. She asked, is the accreditation depending on the school or depending on a specific degree?
So good question, Miriam. Thanks. No, it depends on the school most of the time. So if you look at the schools, especially business schools, they need to get the accreditation. Especially last year or last 2 years, there was from the state government, they increased the regulations to get a certain accreditation to be stately recognized. So there are now quite a lot of business schools who are struggling with that and in keeping up. So it's important to know that. Some accreditations are degree tied. This is mainly on the public side. For example, there are some really specific faculties who are famous for, let's say, psychology research, and they can obtain a different accreditation. Another thing is, for example, an industry-specific accreditation in architecture. There, definitely, it's important that you do a certain program which is accredited according to the architectural standards, not only for Spain, but sometimes you even have accreditational standards, for example, for American architectural standards.
Okay.
That is important, but that has all to do with collaborations between schools. So the schools sometimes don't have full accreditations, but since they do a partnership with different schools abroad, and they get taught by the universities and their curriculum is adjusted to certain standards, they can still, your child can still obtain a degree according to the accreditation standards you desire, but you need to know.
Yeah, that's the first step, I think, always knowing. And as you said, you were a great example of, well, that you didn't know when you started to study. So I think that's the best tip of the day already to check that out before you make any choice. Before we were talking a little bit about cost because of course you say like, well, with the almost fully subsidized public universities in Spain, anyone would be able to study in Spain. So as we are focusing today on Barcelona, well, you live in Barcelona, I also live in Barcelona. Maybe it's interesting for people to know what are realistic monthly budget when it's about living here, not only about the course, but also housing, transport, food, etc.
Okay, yeah. So I'm from Holland. Holland currently, as you know, Doreen, is freakingly expensive. It's getting more and more expensive, unfortunately. When I arrived here in Spain, that's 6 years ago, approximately 6, 7 years ago, I was surprised, especially about the service. So restaurants and so on, it's still extremely affordable. To give you an idea, I lunch every day out, and then you can have a small menu for around 10 euros. Now, try to do that in Amsterdam. But I think for students, mostly important is the living conditions, so the rent. In Barcelona, the rents currently are also increasing. There's something to consider with. So the two big cities like Madrid and Barcelona are getting more expensive. However, they just passed a new rent law. You know that as well, right, Doreen?
Yeah.
With so they made an interesting mistake. I would say the government that uh, they put certain penalties on long-term rents, and therefore everyone only proposed their short-term rentals because
Yeah.
then they could ask more. A little bit same as in Holland with the point system. This is now also enforced on the short-term rentals. This will take at least a half year before most are enforced. But that will mean that most likely, especially student accommodation will get more available and the prices will go down. But to give you a little bit of an idea, I think a student can share a room for around 450 euros. And you can share a room. So two people living in one apartment.
Mhm. In one apartment
And
or in one room?
no, no, no. So you rent an apartment for, let's say, 900 euros and then with two rooms.
Yeah.
Is that
From,
optimist?
well, I think that's very positively looked at it, but it could be a bit more expensive. Well, there's always I think in this case, it's always depending on what you're looking for. So you can start, if you don't mind, to have a single room, for example, not in the middle of the city center or next to your university. It can always be for a better budget than if you want to be on a location in a in a flat. So Julie says, I think that's much. Yeah, it's Barcelona is not, when it's about rent, it's not that cheap anymore, but there's always options for anyone, I think. You know what I just said. Miriam also had another question, which is what is the average cost of the application process? But let's see first, because we now only spoke about housing. So do you have an estimated like amount for what people would need for food, transport, insurance, for example?
Yeah. So if so, healthcare insurance is really affordable. So a child can be monthly assured fully, even with dental. I'm also sometimes surprised by it. From 49 euros per month. That is incredible by one of the top insurance companies. Also subsidized again. So for if you explain this to American families, they don't understand this. They think like you need to wait hours and hours. Now this is even with basic dental. Then we have, so the accommodation is, I think, in my eyes, only expensive. The application for universities is really affordable. So we charge for the application 3.99. We help with the whole process if it is private, and for public, because the processes are longer, is 6.99. That process can take up to 3 to 6 months, depending on which universities they want to get into. And the university application fees are really cheap. Most of the time, they are just administration fees between 300 to now it's even less, like 200 to sometimes 400 euros. But that's an extreme example. But what are you asked one more thing about the
Yeah, like
cost, right?
transport and food. Transport, of course, is also pretty affordable in Barcelona if you look at metro
Transport is
and
super
public
cheap.
transport.
Yeah. You have great transportation. So I got, you have it as well, Doreen, Biesing.
Yeah.
So they have one of the best bicycle sharing systems in the world. It's called Biesing, and it works. It works. Like every time I'm surprised. It's I think every 350 or 400 meters in the city, there are points with bicycles, and you can grab them. They even have electric bikes, which you can use for 25 cents per time, right? Do I say correctly? Or
35 cents, but still, that's
35
very
cents?
cheap.
35 cents, and it just works. And you pay one time per year, 48 euros.
Yeah,
Ja, maakt
but
het
we are maybe a bit influenced as two Dutch people speaking here that we of course love the bike system in Barcelona and love to bike around, but there's also very good public transport possibilities for people that maybe don't like to bike, even though I recommend to bike in Barcelona. But
Barcelona is almost as bike. Now, I must say, maybe even bike friendlier than Holland.
I love it. Yeah, for sure.
I like it a lot. Then you have the subway, also well connected. I think you pay like 120 per ride, but you can have monthly cards as well.
Yeah, I think
So
the
it's
monthly
over.
cards are very cheap, and for students there's also special discounts. So it's I don't know the exact prices to be honest, but it's very affordable. Yeah.
Yeah, and food. Yeah, food is just like the supermarkets are. Yeah, it's all relatively affordable. Depends what you're used to.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
thing. It depends where you maybe compare it with. If you're from the United States or from the Netherlands, everything is cheap, and if you come from a country where things are maybe cheaper, it may feel a bit more expensive, but it's definitely affordable for most people. We have someone in the chat saying, I miss Barcelona." I understand that.
yeah.
Is the public transport system safe? Talking about the public transport.
Yeah, what I always find really interesting is there's a negative stigma about the safety of Barcelona. Yes, there is one neighborhood, Raval, which is not safe, but I think every city in the world has that. We have the Bijlmer. Please don't go to the Bijlmer, or you can go to the Bijlmer, but not to the center of the Bijlmer. And here's the same in Raval. Barcelona is in my opinion really safe. And also the yeah, don't go. You can also go in the metro. I've never seen anything like it. You, Doreen, have you seen anything in the metro?
No, no, no. Well, Barcelona is mostly known because there are some pickpockets, but in every big city there are pickpockets, and you just have to be aware. But it's not that if you're entering the metro that something will happen to you. Nothing ever happened to me, and I use the metro quite often, so no, it's relatively safe. Speaking about this neighborhood, you said before neighborhoods. On Friday, we will speak with Spot the Home, and we will also discuss a little bit which neighborhoods are the best to live in and which neighborhoods to maybe better avoid. But yeah, no, public transport super safe. Even at night, it's very very safe. Yeah. Okay, let me see if there are some other questions that I wanted to ask to you. Yeah, maybe interesting if we're talking about budget and money. Is it possible for students to work while they study in Spain?
Yeah, so they changed that law also recently. Students, when they have their student visa, before that was difficult to work, but now they can work up to 20 hours per week. So that's a time. So that's actually quite a lot. Depending on what language you speak, of course, but if you just speak proper English, there are a lot of sales jobs available. Like Barcelona is known for their sales hub, so students can do part-time work. Of course, they can work in service as well. So a lot of students, what they do is just sometimes they have classes in the evening, and then during the day they work, and like that they can almost everyone can afford to study abroad, because if you consider that studying in Barcelona in a public university will be between 800 to 1500 euros per year. Then of course you need to have your living expenses. Let's make the calculation. Let's make it 500 euros extra if you live with 2 3 people. Students most of the time do that. And then on top of that, on average, I think people can live with. I've seen students live with 1,000 to 1,300 euros per month. But then you're a student, of course. And
Yeah, yeah. It all depends on the lifestyle, but it's definitely possible. Yeah. Okay. No, and it's good to know that there are also possibilities to work as a student from abroad. I wasn't aware of that, so that's also new for me. Are there scholarships or free waivers for international students if they want to study at public universities in Spain or in Barcelona?
So like there are some scholarships, but the thing is as well that the tuitions are so low. If someone cannot pay 1,000 euros, then they also have no money for the rest of the living expenses and so on. What we always say to the students is like see the 1,000 euros also a little bit as a commitment fee that it keeps you by the less, as we say. And there are some for excellent students. There are some they can waive that, but then yeah, we are talking about €1,000 per year. For private schools, there are in certain moments scholarships. There are partially most of the time, and it depends on your ethnicity or where you how high your GPA is.
Okay.
Yeah, also female. Say also lately there are a lot of female scholarships, female in tech. If you, for example, are from a development country, sometimes you can get full scholarships if you, for example, want to study computer science and you're from Africa.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. And is that things that you also can help with, or is that something that students have to do by themselves?
No, so at this point of time, we are mainly focusing on helping people get into universities. Scholarships, there are some other websites who support with that. No, we help with making the decision, getting people into public, and in that sense, it's always almost already a scholarship because most people get stuck in the process.
Yeah. So the chances are higher to get in with the right guidance from you guys. Okay. I have one more question before we're going to end it. If anyone that is watching has another question, please feel free to share. But what is the biggest mistakes you think when people, according to you, when people choose a course or choose a university or choose a, well, I think I actually know the answer maybe already. But okay, give me
The
your answer.
biggest mistake, Doreen, is not to study abroad.
That's a beautiful answer.
No,
Yeah.
really. Like nowadays, especially with so much globalization going on, if you look at my company, for example, we are with 15 people and we are almost with 9 nationalities. If you come from Holland and you stayed your whole life in Holland and all of a sudden you need to work in such a diverse work environment, you will not succeed. So a lot of people procrastinate. In the end, they think that costs are the problem. It's not, or the process is the problem, or that the city is unsafe. Believe me, you can always find an argument not to go, but you should find arguments to go. And I think that is the biggest mistake people make nowadays. So
Yeah.
that is what I want to say, and that's what I want to end. Because there are, of course, many more mistakes with procrastination and so on. But in the end, yeah, we can help with that.
Well, that's not the answer I'd expected, but I think it's the best answer on this question. And I can totally agree with it from my personal situation. I didn't study abroad because I got like stuck in the, oh, I don't know where to go and what to choose, and in the end I never did it, and I really regretted it on a later age and moved to Barcelona after all anyway. But still, great advice. Is there anything else, Rodin, that you want to share with us before we're gonna end this live session?
Sorry, you broke up for a second.
Oh,
You asked
sorry.
me a
If
question
there's
or?
anything else you would like to share with us?
Yes. So one more thing, I would say, please don't wait too long as well, because a lot of students they always think that okay, I found my course and I can apply 1 month before, even if the application say so the application deadline, yes, it is 1 month before. Be aware, especially as an international student, that there are a lot of bureaucratic steps in between which can take up to 5 months. And then you will have a reason not to study abroad. It's because a lot of people, they simply miss out on the deadline and then they need to wait another year. And yeah, I get that as well. Parents are paying and when your child is sitting there waiting for a year, that is a reason not to study abroad. But
Yeah.
therefore, please don't procrastinate. Just have a call with us and see what is necessary to study. And then you know what to do. You can put it away and pick it up later, or at least you know when to start, and that is the biggest advice which I can give you.
Okay. Thank you for that. So before we're gonna end this, I want to first of all thank you, Rodin, for all the interesting information that you shared with us. I also want to let our viewers know that if you send the word study in the chat, you will receive the free Study in Barcelona guide. In this guide, there's also a part of the Study in Spain guide from StudiesIn, which is a very complete overview for students who want to study in Spain. It explains a lot about how to choose a university, apply, live in Spain, budget, accommodation. It's very, very good. So I really recommend to send study. And also to follow Barcelona Expat Live, of course, on Instagram and Studies in Spain as well. Tomorrow at 4, we're back here. Well, not here. Tomorrow we'll be on TikTok with ASI Business School, and we will talk about application and how to actually get in. And we are having the interview with the head of admission, so she will give some tips and tricks. Once again, the discount code to take use of the services of StudiesIn is expat20 off, which gives a 20% discount on the first introductional call. Can I call it like that, Rodin?
No, the first call,
okay.
the first call is for free, but
okay.
they get 20% off on the eligibility study.
Okay, that's good that I checked that. Okay, we will also share the link to your website so people can check it out. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for your information, Rodin.
Okay, likewise.
Okay.
Speak soon. Bye-bye.
Oh, I will wait for a moment so we can share the website of StudiesIn. So you can actually go directly to their website, or you can also, of course, go to their Instagram. Thank you very much, and see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. What about you?
Well, very good. I also made a short introduction, so we'll wait for a little bit longer. There are some people viewing, so that's good. I also already introduced the start of this session of the Study in Barcelona week, and I shortly already mentioned your name, but I didn't properly introduce you yet, so maybe we can start with that. So my name is Doreen from Barcelona Expat Life. Rodin?
Yes, so Doreen, thank you so much for having me. My name is Rodin Affourtit. I'm Dutch, like yourself, and many people also in the network, I understood. I moved to Barcelona like approximately 7 years ago for my MBA, actually. And during that moving, I was just super excited about just the city and also the quality of education. However, unfortunately, when I completed my MBA, I spent almost 24,000 euros. And by the end of the MBA, even though I'm Dutch, I found out that it was not accredited. Yes.
Okay.
So, and I found out that many students, and it doesn't matter where they come from, because I'm from Holland, so technically I could have gone to the university or did a little bit more digging. But the problem is with private education is that, yeah, they show always beautiful websites and accreditations, but you don't really know if that is really applicable for your country. And that is one of the main reasons actually nowadays where people, of course, the main reason is budget, why they don't study abroad. But the second reason is, if I send my child abroad or overseas, will he come back with something useful? Of course, a lot of experiences, but in the end, you want also that your child ends up with an education that they can apply somewhere. So with that said, it's a long introduction. I found out that the system, so to study abroad, is a little bit corrupt in that sense, where normally there are all kinds of agents in between. So if you are in America, it's a bit less, but mainly from countries like India, Pakistan, or South America, and so on. What happens there is you have local educational providers who work with a handful of students, for a handful of universities, and they send the students to universities, not which is best for the student, but where they can make most commission. And when I found that out, I realized, okay, first of all, there's a big business opportunity because you can make quite a lot of money there. But the main importance is to create transparency. And then we realized that the whole international education market is only focused on a really small segment, and that is the private education. And therefore, a lot of students, firstly, don't miss out on an international education, because to study private, you need to have around from 10